Live.
A very good evening and welcome. This is Prime Time News on TV1. Today is the 15th of May 2023. I am Zama Ratnayaka for the News First team. Let's start your bulletin off with a look at the headlines for tonight.
IMF says it will not get involved in domestic debt restructuring. Heavy security curtains surrounding the Colombo University lifted. Was the security in Colombo tightened because Mahinda Rajapaksa requested for the post of Prime Minister?
ඒ වගේ නායකයෙක් අපි කවදාවත් හොර රහසේ බලහත්කාරයෙන් හමුදාවගෙන හැල්ලා දාගෙන මේ රටේ තනතුරකට පත් කරන්නේ නැහැ.
Governors of the northern, eastern and northwestern provinces removed. Opposition leaders show support to call for early presidential elections. One person missing and 7 more injured due to bad weather that affected many districts.
In your top story for tonight, the International Monetary Fund on Monday stressed that it would not get involved in Sri Lanka's domestic restructuring process. A team from the IMF arrived in Sri Lanka earlier this month and will be in the country until the 23rd. And today, a press briefing was held at the central bank premises. Now, the press briefing was led by Krishna Srinivasan, who is the head of the Asia Pacific Department of the IMF. In his opening remarks, Krishna Srinivasan said that it has been projected that Sri Lanka's economy will contract by 3% and thereafter it will see a growth of nearly 1.4% in 2024. Krishna Srinivasan also noted that Sri Lanka will undergo an IMF governance diagnostic exercise which will examine Sri Lanka's corruption vulnerabilities and other aspects, and several other remarks were also expressed. Peter Breuer, who is the IMF mission chief to Sri Lanka, and several other key officials joined the meeting this evening.
The authorities are making good faith efforts to negotiate with all the creditors, both private creditors and official creditors, and the engagement is going on quite well. In terms of the timeline, it's expectation that the restructuring exercise will be completed by the first review of the program, which is in September or October. Just to be very clear, the IMF's role in any debt restructuring exercise like this in the context of a program, we define the macro framework, the debt targets, and so on and so forth. We don't get involved per se in any of the debt restructuring negotiations, defining the perimeter of debt, and so on and so forth. That said, any kind of restructuring will need to keep into account to make sure that the financial stability is assured.
Krishna Srinivasan told that the reform program prioritizes 5 key pillars.
The reform program supported under the EFF arrangement is built on strong policy measures and prioritizes 5 key pillars. First, an ambitious revenue-based fiscal consolidation. Second, restoration of public debt sustainability. Third, a multi-pronged strategy to restore price stability and rebuild reserves. Fourth, policies to safeguard financial sector stability. And fifth, structural reforms to address corruption vulnerabilities and enhance growth. Sri Lanka is the first country in Asia that has undergone the IMF governance diagnostic exercise. The IMF governance diagnostic report is expected to be published by September this year. The IMF supported program is an opportunity for all Sri Lankans to come together to work through this crisis to restore economic stability and put the country on a sustainable growth path. The key is implementation. The IMF is here to help you along the way. Addressing corruption and improving governance is a key pillar of the program. So, one, you can't disentangle the two. So, to the extent that we're addressing these issues in the context of the program, it should give support to the reform effort. I think when you have a financial crisis, when you have a crisis of this proportion, there's often a permanent loss. But that can be addressed through structural reforms and so on. So the phase we are right now is macro stabilization, macro fiscal stabilization, right? Once that is achieved, And also, as part of that, concomitantly, we could talk about structural reforms which will help address these longer-term growth issues.
Senior IMF Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Breuer, noted that it is up to the authorities to decide on how to distribute the burden of debt relief.
Our role is to ensure that whatever debt restructuring strategy the authorities decide on is consistent with the debt targets that are designed for Sri Lanka to restore debt sustainability. So as such, we don't have any particular view on how the burden should be distributed across creditors, whether they're external or domestic. Having said that, we do have a keen interest to ensure that the domestic economy and the domestic financial system continue to work and are stable. So those are the aspects that we would focus on that in the discussions. It's up to the authorities to decide, how to distribute the burden of debt relief across all these different creditors. Yeah. You have a severe crisis in Sri Lanka. It's really a severe crisis, which hits people very hard. And then the IMF comes along, and there's a negotiation with the authorities about the reforms that are needed to get out of that crisis. So, in people's perception, these two things are linked, and they may not like it. But Sri Lanka is actually a very good example of what happens when the IMF isn't here. As you know, the crisis happened more than a year ago. We negotiated staff-level agreement on September 1, and then there has been a long period until March where the IMF program had not yet started, and the pain was palpable in Sri Lanka. But the pain was clear and present. What the IMF does is it provides some financing that cushions the transition from this very harsh reality to a new equilibrium. So it gives a little bit of breathing space to let these reforms that are necessary take place and help the country emerge from the crisis.
Senior journalist Shamindra Ferdinando commented on the current state of affairs during a program in Colombo.
When the Gotabaya Rajapaksa government continuously committed mistakes, the heads of the government media summoned us. They had decided that the government was going to collapse because of the Sirasa media network. They blamed and reprimanded Sirasa. Kingsley Ratnayaka should have stood up and defended Sirasa. When I understood that he would not be doing so, I said that this is not the fault of Sirasa, Derana or even Hiru. I noted that it was the government that created the fertilizer issue. I stressed that if the government is trying to blame the media for all the issues, that government will not last long. The people need to be made aware about who is causing the issue. I would like to state this as well. When this individual became the president of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, I asked if he had no shame to obtain money from perpetual treasuries for an event. Just imagine they looted the central bank twice. This should not happen. If the cases filed by the Chief Justice when he was serving as the Attorney General are being withdrawn with a change in the government, there is an issue. If attempts are being made to silence the people and the media, stating that it is contempt of court, that is a crime. I wish to ask the lawyers here, how can the president pardon a person who has been convicted by the court? These corrupt individuals, the executive or any other person should not be allowed to deceive this country anymore. Between 2017 to 2019, a powerful company in the country imported human and clinical waste to the tune of 100 tons. The government was also linked to this. Sirasa exposed it and named those responsible. However, the Attorney General's department, the government and even the Justice Ministry showed no interest to take action. Eventually, the Centre for Environment Justice took the matter to court and Sri Lanka received the strength to ship back the waste to the UK. The people need to be made aware of these events. This country would be in a better place if we show the same interest in writing about the death of a 16-year-old girl from Kalutara who jumped off a building to also report on the other matters. If a person who was rejected by the people is able to enter Parliament from the national list, that is a collapse in the rule of law in the country. At times, the people believe they were born in the wrong country. This is because the situation is so worse that we have to import everything. I recently witnessed the Education Minister serving food for the US ambassador in the presence of a child. When we can produce rice, we are importing rice from all over. This is the situation in the country. In fact, the parties that govern this country and led it to bankruptcy should be prosecuted.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna says it has not made any request to appoint Mahinda Rajapaksa as the Prime Minister. General Secretary of the party, Attorney Sagara Kariyawasam, expressed the following remarks regarding the matter during a media briefing held at the party headquarters today.
There's a baseless rumor spreading within social circles that there is an attempt to name the 5th executive president of Sri Lanka, Mahinda Rajapaksa, as the Prime Minister, and therefore security in Colombo has been tightened. We wish to stress that Mahinda Rajapaksa is the greatest leader that was born post-independence. Mahinda Rajapaksa is the one who ended a war 4 other presidents could not end. He stopped young men from the south being sent home in sealed coffins and enabled students in the northern province to educate themselves freely. If I am to use his own words, he is unafraid to secure power for the people, and he is unafraid to relinquish it for the sake of the people. Such a leader will never be appointed secretly using military force. This is a lie spread by politicians who do not have any other topic to talk about and are attempting to cover up their own political failures.
මාතෘකා නැති දේශපාලනඥයින් විසින් සමාජගත කරන බොරුවක් මිසක් සත්‍යතාවයක් ඇති කාරණයක් නෙවෙයි.
ඇත්තටම මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ හිටපු ජනාධිපතිතුමා නැවත වතාවක් අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය ධූරයේ අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය තනතුර ලබා දෙන්න කියලා ඔබතුමන්ලා පක්ෂයක් විදියට ඉල්ලීමක් කරේ නැද්ද ජනාධිපතිවරයාගෙන්? එහෙම සාකච්ඡාවක් සිදු වෙලාම නැද්ද?
පක්ෂයක් හැටියට අපි එවැනි
We have not made such a request as a party. Therefore, neither is there a connection of the party to those rumors, nor is there a truth to such stories. No such discussion has taken place, which is why I am harping on it.
සම්බන්ධයෙන් සාකච්ඡාවක් කරලා නැහැ. ඒක ඉතා පැහැදිලිව ඒකයි මම දිගින් දිගටම ප්‍රකාශ කරේ.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදුජන පෙරමුණ නියෝජනය කරන മന്ത്രിවරුන්ට යම් යම් මාත්‍ය දූර දෙන්න ලබයි සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඔබතුමාලා යම් සාකච්ඡාවක් සිදු වුණානේ.
ජනාධිපතිවරයා හැටියට එතුමාගෙන්
When he was initially appointed the president, we provided a list of names and said we would prefer if those people are included in the cabinet. That is a right we bear as a political party, and we made that request. That request is valid to date. Fulfilling the request or not is his right. We will not intervene any further into it.
ඉතින් ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි එතනින් එහාට මැදිහත් වීමක් කරන්නේ නැහැ.
ඔබතුමාට වාර්තා වෙන තොරතුරු අනුව මොකද්ද මේ ආරක්ෂාව මෙතරම් ආරක්ෂාවක් යොදවන්න හේතුව මොකද්ද? මොකද්ද ඇත්තටම වෙලා තියෙන්නේ?
ඔබ අහපු ප්‍රශ්නෙට උත්තරේ
I can give you 2 answers. The first is there is no relevance between beefing up security and the wrong claim of Mahinda Rajapaksa being made Prime Minister. The second answer is if there is a security threat that should be informed by the Minister of Defence or its secretary. It shouldn't be done by me. Me making such a statement is not wise for the country or its security.
රටට රටේ ආරක්ෂාවට ප්‍රඥා ගෝචර වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
UNP Working Committee member Kitsiri Manchanayaka noted that certain factions in the SLPP wish to see Mahinda Rajapaksa become Prime Minister.
There is no idea to appoint Mahinda Rajapaksa as the country's Prime Minister. We need to decide whether to meet the request of the SLPP or the people, or to nourish the people. We can meet the SLPP request. If these appointments are made, it would once again lead to a struggle that would incite the people. Although some factions within the SLPP wanted Mahinda Rajapaksa to become the Prime Minister, I do not think he was ready to accept it. They are afraid of the President's journey of achieving success. These are attempts being made by groups that are greedy for power.
Why was security tightened?
කොළඹ නගරයේ ආරක්ෂා තර කිරීම මට ලැබිලා තියෙන තොරතුරු අනුව නම් මම හිතන්නේ පෙරහුරුවක් හැටියට තමයි මේ ආරක්ෂාව තර කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
Sri Lankan authorities have lifted the heavy security curtain that was imposed in and around the University of Colombo over the weekend. Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Taldua told News First that although the special security measures were lifted, the normal course of security operations will remain in effect. This was the situation opposite the University of Colombo on Monday morning.
The Colombo University Student Union responded to this.
It can be stated clearly that we as students have never engaged in any conspiracy within the University of Colombo. In fact, we came to know about this incident after the army and the police surrounded the university. What can be said with responsibility is that there was no conspiracy of any kind by the students of the Colombo University. Exams are going on. While the exams were going on, the army and police security was deployed. So even the students were questioned why security was tightened if it was for the exams. Students questioned us about this in a humorous manner. The government seems to be engaging in a dubious scheme to spread misinformation in society.
The Chancellor of the University of Colombo had this to say.
I did see it. I need to look into it. If there seems to be any form of a wave of dissent, I will make a request not to go ahead with it, because this is not the time to do so. It is a time to rebuild the country. Security needs to be tightened when humanity erodes. Mahinda Rajapaksa visits the temple every week. He worked for the nation. We cannot deny it. We need to be grateful. I do not have an opinion of who should be appointed or not. Political parties also commented on this today.
The government itself is showing that it does not have a mandate. According to them, there are people rallying against them. Therefore, the police was deployed. It has come to the realization that it has no one to protect it. All that is left is the army and police. If not for them, this government would not exist today. Through this, it shows that it is clinging on to power forcefully. The security presence we are seeing in and around Colombo is the prime example of it. They have confirmed that they rely on the police and army. Whose government is this? This is the government of the Common Alliance. The president, who is the UNP leader, only has one MP in parliament, that is Vajra Bevartana. The SLPP holds a majority in parliament out of the 225. If so, who is running the government? It is no one but the SLPP. The truth is, the SLPP can send the president home at any given time. The president is being protected by a party that contested against him at every election and promoted propaganda against him, calling the people to support it. That party makes certain assertions. It says appoint a certain individual, the Prime Minister, appoint members of its party to the cabinet. For how long can a government of this nature function, especially amidst all these contrasting views internally?
The last few days, capital city, Colombo, has been surrounded by military and police in large numbers. It is said that based upon some rumor, they have been deployed. This is causing unnecessary concern, great amount of fear in the minds of the populace. President who has no people's mandate should not frighten people in this way. We condemn this move, particularly when it is based on some rumor.
The military was deployed across the country. President Ranil Wickremesinghe was to answer to the people. There is an issue as to whether some departments are operating on the requirements of Mahinda. Even though the president had taken such a measure for security, the situation is such that we cannot even engage in democratic struggles. We need to allow that. It is wrong to threaten the people by deploying the military. In the end, the story they made up was intelligence services thought an order of 1,000 lunch packets were made to distribute at a protest. Police officers were made to stand outside the university without even so much as something to eat. Deploying the army and police only shows how fearful he is. It is being made fun of on social media. Ranil and the Rajapakshas are trying to intimidate us, but no one is intimidated. Everyone is laughing.
The President's Media Division announced that the President has removed the governors of the Northern, Eastern and Northwestern provinces.
It was recently reported that the President's office had requested the governors of the Sabaragamuwa, Uva, Northern, Eastern, Northwestern and Western provinces to step down. However, the governors in response said that as no official communication was delivered to them, they would continue to function as governors. On Monday evening, the President had taken measures to remove Northern Province Governor Jeevan Tyagaraja, Eastern Province Governor Anuradha Yahampath and Northwestern Province Governor Admiral of the Fleet Vasantha Karannagoda. The President's Media Division said the new governors will be appointed on Wednesday, the 17th. The Central Province Governor commented on the matter.
The President appoints his representatives as the governors. We serve at the pleasure of the President. We can serve as governors as long as he wishes.
The SLPP said it had not intervened in the matter.
Sri Lanka
As per the Constitution, the President is vested with the power and the right to appoint and remove governors. When we extended our support to him to become the President, we did not impose any conditions on whom we wanted and who we need to remove. He has the right to remove and appoint governors, and we as a party will not challenge that. It is a right given to him by the Constitution.
Opposition parties, including the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, that have launched a common program, have called for an election to be held.
The SLPP has the power to end this government within 24 hours. Allow the country to vote in a government it prefers. Do not delay elections repeatedly. It is being done because they fear the people. That is why Thurston Road and Reed Avenue have been turned into military camps. A country cannot be governed in this manner.
The executive committee, comprising members of the parties that have joined a common opposition program, convened today, headed by the leader of the opposition. During the meeting, they expressed their fullest support to hold a presidential election.
We extend our unhindered support and approval to hold the presidential election prior to its mandated time frame. We will raise both hands to approve any regulations or legislation required to pave the way for an election. We are ready to accept the challenge of a presidential election. Regardless of whether a 2/3 or 5/6 is required, we will provide our fullest support to hold the election early.
Parliamentarian Partli Champika Ranawaka called on the Mahanayaka Theros of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters of the Siam sect to inform them about a new political journey. A new political party named Eksat Janaraja Peramuna, or the United Republic Front, will launch on the 22nd of May, the Republic Day of Sri Lanka. Parliamentarian Champika Ranawaka called on Deputy Registrar of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Narampanave Ananda Thero.
There is no harm in forming a political party to represent your political views. However, given the present crisis, all political parties must unite and prepare a sustainable program. In party politics, they only see from their party or policy point of views and do not reach a common program to face the issue. There is no such agreement and the government lacks vision. What is happening in the north and the east would lead to communal tensions again. The government must act responsibly at this time.
Speaking to the media in Kegol today, national organizer of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya Tissa Attanayaka commented on crossovers.
We requested the people who were creating rifts within the party while being in the party and those praising the government to leave if they cannot work with us. That is correct. Regardless of who leaves, our supporters won't run away. They may cross over to enjoy benefits, privileges and positions. We intend to cleanse the party and move forward.
වත්මන් ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයා මෙතුමා ඔබතුමාගේ මුලින් නායකයා. ඔබතුමා කවද කියන්නේ? ඇත්තටම මම නම් නැවත
I do not expect to join him at any instance again. Ranil Wickremesinghe is the SLPP's unofficial leader. In truth, he is the one protecting them.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe held another round of talks with the MPs from the north and east.
MPs from the Tamil National Alliance, Tamil Makkal Thesiya Kuttani and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party met at the President's office at 5:30 p.m. on Monday evening. The meeting was supposed to take place last Friday, but it was rescheduled for Monday. The devolution of power, land issues in the north and east, and the release of political detainees were among the matters discussed.
There was a paper that was presented by Justice Vigneswaran, signed by government party members and some other political parties that have no representation in parliament. A document which was given to us, which the TNA parties had declined to sign that document, and we pointed out to the President that that will not do. There are 13 Tamil MPs from the north and east in the opposition, and only one of them has signed that document. Then the President said, no, he has identified certain areas that need clarification and so on. We again pointed out to the President that all of those matters are parts of reports that have already been submitted to Parliament, The President wanted to appoint a committee to give a report on that. We declined to participate in that committee on the basis that this has been discussed and several reports have already emerged with regard to this. We insisted that a new constitution be framed immediately and also for provincial councils elections to be held immediately. I have presented a private member's bill based on the recommendation of the Dinesh Gunawardena Select Committee proposals. The Honourable Prime Minister said that we need to discuss the electoral process. There was no agreement with regard to that or the framing of a new constitution. This is a time-wasting exercise indulged by the government to show everyone that there is some process that is going on, when in fact no process is going on, only mere talk shop is happening.
ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් කොයිද තියෙන්නේ? සුපර්මාකට් එකෙන් වගේ තෝරලා බේරලා ගැලපෙන ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එක අරගන්න නම් මේ තියෙන ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් සුපර්මාකට් එක. ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකක් ගන්නවා නම් ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එක්ක කතා කරන්න. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් සුපර්මාකට් එක insurme.lk.
One person has been reported missing and 7 others injured owing to the extreme rainy conditions experienced across the island. The Disaster Management Centre says that more than 1,872 individuals belonging to 428 families in 7 districts are affected by this severe weather condition. We now cross over to News First's Senitha Senanayake from the Weather Centre for a detailed analysis.
Sri Lanka experienced heavy rainfall in the past few days, with the Galle and Mathura districts battering the most out of it. Now, with the torrential downpour, due to the overflowing of the Nilwala and Gin River, many low-lying areas in the Galle and Mathura districts have now been inundated.
Due to the Nilwala River overflowing, many homes and shops in the Akurasa town have been inundated. Meanwhile, Southern Naval Rescue teams are currently engaging in missions to rescue displaced individuals in the Akurasa, Aturalia and Malimbada divisional secretariats. Meanwhile, the business community of Akurasa distributed dry rations at the Dasamahabodhi temple to those affected by the floods. Lowlands in Hiniduma, Udugama, Nagoda and Unanbitiya had been inundated due to the Ging River overflowing. The Mapalagama Alpitiya main road and the Udugama Baddegama road were inundated in several places. Meanwhile, lowlands in Malimbada, Kadduwa, Aturalia, Karagoda, Uyangoda and Ballatota were inundated due to the rising water level of the Nilwala river. A house has been severely damaged due to a landslide that occurred last night in the Handugala area in Hambantota due to heavy rains. No one was at the home during the landslide. Meanwhile, the Hadugala Mavarala road has been damaged at several places due to heavy rains last night. Power supply in the area has been disrupted since last afternoon due to power lines collapsing. Meanwhile, a house in Habgitakanda in Hambantota was damaged due to it being struck by lightning. Our correspondent says that no one was in the house during the incident. Meanwhile, lowlands in the Tihagoda area in Mathura were inundated due to the flow of the upper area of the Nilwala river. The Tihagoda Kithalagama Primary School has been inundated due to this. Meanwhile, holidays were granted to many schools in the Deniaya and Mulatiana education zones today. Secretary of the Southern Province Education Ministry Ranjit Yapa said that schools were closed due to the risk of floods and landslides. 10 schools falling under the Mulatiana education zone have been closed. The landslide warnings issued for the Matara, Gaul, Hambantota, Kalutara and Ratnapura districts are still in effect. Accordingly, landslide warnings have been issued for Nellua, Baddegama, Yakkalamulla and Alpetia Divisional Secretariat Divisions of the Gaul district and the Valasmulla Divisional Secretariat Division of the Hambantota district. According to the National Building Research Organisation, landslide warnings are in effect for the Palindanuara and Balalavita Divisional Secretariat Divisions of the Kalutara districts and Athuralia, Mulatiana, Akurassa, Kotapula, Pitabaddara and Paskuda Divisional Secretariat Divisions of the Matara district. The National Building Research Organisation says that landslide warnings have been issued for the Ahliagoda and Kiriyalla Divisional Secretariat Divisions of the Ratnapura district. Senior geologist of the National Building Research Organisation Vasanta Senadira says that the general public should be vigilant.
What advice would be given to those living in the affected areas?
Do not allow children to engage in water activities. If the roads are flooded, always move from the middle of the road as there could be drains which are not secure, and if you fall in them, there could be injuries. If power lines have fallen due to trees falling on it or other ways, do not touch them. If you see such incidents, call 117, the hotline for the Disaster Management Centre, and we will take action regarding that immediately.
That was Major General Sudanta Ramsingha, the Director of the Disaster Management Centre. Moving on to more news. A powerful cyclone named Cyclone Mocha has hit the coastlines of Bangladesh and Myanmar after intensifying into the equivalent of a Category 5 storm.
Cyclone Mocha did not make rainfall at the sprawling refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, but still tore apart hundreds of makeshift shelters. At least 6 people have been reported dead in Myanmar. Myanmar appears to have borne more direct impact, with the storm crashing through houses and cutting power lines in the country. Myanmar's Met Department said it pounded through the country at about 209 km per hour wind speeds. Storms within the moderate risk category are predicted to have a moderate chance of winds or gusts upwards of 91 to 119 km per hour. In severe storm risk situations, wind speeds and gusts are likely to blow at extremely high speeds, including sustained winds or gusts of around 149 km per hour or more.
A cultural event to commemorate 75 years of independence of both Sri Lanka and Israel, organized by the Israel-Sri Lanka Solidarity Movement, was held on Sunday, which was the National Independence Day of Israel. It was held at the open-air theatre of the Vihara Mahadevi Park in Colombo.
The aim of the event is to reignite an ancient tie between the two nations, to form a loyal, supportive friendship between the two nations, and to invite Israel to invest and engage in Sri Lanka's challenged sectors of agriculture, education, health and economy.
Israel-Sri Lanka Solidarity Movement is a people-centric movement that brings together every religion, every race, every people group from across the nation, from all 25 provinces. From every district and province you will have a faithful gathering of people. It's a coming together. So this particular organization, what we choose to today present before you is that every one of you that are gathered here is a very special, vital part of birthing a new Sri Lanka.
Members of the business community, Israel diplomats, Israeli families residing in Sri Lanka, clergy from different faiths and the general public took part in the event.
Shanuka, Elangasekere. The police special task force has arrested a suspect with close to 3 kilograms of Kerala cannabis in Ilwale, Jaffna.
The arrest was carried out by a team led by Sub-Inspector HDK Vitarana based on a tip-off received by the Jaffna Police Special Task Force base. The 34-year-old suspect, who is a resident of Ilavali, was produced to the Kopai police station for further investigations.
Minister Nimal Siripala De Silva says that Sri Lanka is ready to play a special role in cooperation in the Indian Ocean region. He made these remarks while joining the Indian Ocean Summit.
The 6th Indian Ocean Summit was held in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Nimal Siripala De Silva, the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Aviation, represented Sri Lanka. Speaking there, the minister said that the Indian Ocean region has always been an important place for every country.
Sri Lanka has consistently urged for the incorporation of an Indian Ocean Development Fund for the development of the region, and in particular establishing a strong humanitarian assistance and disaster management mechanism to deal with the natural and man-made disasters. Sri Lanka also believes that there is a significant need for enhanced Indian Ocean regionalization and focuses on augmenting cooperation across the maritime domain. Such regionalism should strive to create a closer linkage between ASEAN, AGOA and BIMSTEC. Sri Lanka's historical and cultural significance as a central hub for the connectivity in the Indian Ocean cannot be overstated. Our strong partnership with the Indian Ocean countries have enabled us to play an important role in the region's multilateral engagements. Sri Lanka is committed to further strengthening these partnerships and engaging with regional community to promote peace, prosperity and development in the region.
The LOLC Divisavya program that aims to support the education of Sri Lankan children took place centering the Trincomalee district on Monday.
The LOLC Divisavya program delivers school books and stationery to the most impoverished students in the country. This worthy initiative is a collaboration between the LOLC group and the Ministry of Education. The program took place at the Trincomalee North Education Zone on Monday. School books and stationery were distributed to the students from the Thiriyaya Kallampattu Tamil Mixed Vidyalaya, Pulmude Tennamaranwadi Tamil Vidyalaya, Pulmude As Safa Muslim Vidyalaya, Kallarava St. Anthony's Sinhala Vidyalaya. School books and stationery were also distributed to the students from the Moravavayaya Haya Vidyalaya, Padavi Gamunapura Vidyalaya, Kanijawali Sinhala Vidyalaya, Pulikandi Kolumba Vidyalaya. The LOLC
Pakistan Supreme Court on Monday began hearing a landmark plea by the Elections Commission of Pakistan that the Supreme Court has no authority to set a date for elections a day after the lapse of the May 14th date set by the Apex Court for elections in Punjab, Pakistan's largest province. The case was adjourned until the 23rd of May.
The ECP has said that the government has refused to release funds for the elections. The case has interesting ramifications for Sri Lanka, where the government also argued against local government polls on the grounds that there were no funds available.
The Sports Ministry and Sri Lanka Cricket have agreed to hold the 2023 SLC election according to the old regulations that the Sports Ministry had imposed before the 14th of December 2022 regarding cricket and other sports.
These agreements were reached when the case related to the writ petition submitted by Sri Lanka Cricket against the new regulations imposed by the Sports Minister on December 14, 2022 was heard in the Supreme Court. Accordingly, the new regulations imposed by the Sports Minister on December 14, 2022 regarding sports will come into effect from next August. Thus, the two parties have agreed to hold the upcoming 2023 Sri Lanka cricket election according to the old regulations and to withdraw the other cases filed by Sri Lanka Cricket against the Ministry of Sports. The Sri Lanka cricket election is scheduled to be held on the 20th of this month.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For the News First team, I'm Zaima Ratnayaka. Take care and good night.